Throughout this process, we've discussed how you have to have a desire to change. And at this point, you should have that desire within inside of you. But that desire will remain nothing more than a desire until you act upon that desire. That desire that you want to improve your character, your situation, your relationship with God, and your relationship with the society that's around you. And part of this process is that you have to have goals for yourself and goals for your life that you're going to strive towards, because it's through the striving towards these goals that you're going to have the opportunity to work on your character, to work on your relationship with God, to work on your relationship with those around you. And all of these goals that you're going to have for self-improvement and for your life are going to require a consistent amount of action, which is going to require a certain level of discipline. And that discipline is going to come in the form of consistently doing the things that are going to bring you closer towards your goals. And it's also going to come in the form of refraining from the things that are going to prevent you or hinder you from moving towards your goals. And when you're looking at your current situation and you're looking at where you want to be, I really hope that you're dreaming big, that you have really high standards for where you would like to be, for who you want to become, for the things that you want to accomplish. And again, in order to accomplish those things, that's going to require an enormous amount of discipline. And there's a great practice that you can do that is going to help you in developing your ability to do the things that you're supposed to do, as well as refraining from the things that are going to hinder or prevent you from achieving those goals. And that's fasting. One of the reasons for the state that you are slowly pulling yourself out of is your lack of ability to refrain from following your own whims and desires. When we talked about people, places, and things, many of these people, places, and things are people, places, and things that we choose willingly to enter into our lives. We do so because we desire them, and we desire them because they make us feel good, despite the fact that in the long term, many of these things cause us harm. These things can range from drugs and alcohol to certain social gatherings to overindulging in media or food. Unfortunately, a large portion of the things that we desire and an even greater portion of the things that we are easily addicted to are harmful to us. There's a general rule that can be followed that nearly everything that is good in our lives is shrouded in a curtain of distaste. Yet, nearly everything bad that we can find in our lives is shrouded in a curtain of desire. Meaning that even though a thing is good for us, we dislike to do it. Oftentimes, we actually prefer to do the opposite. Despite the fact that these things are harmful for us, we desire to do them. And sometimes we can become addicted to doing them. In general, if you look at the things that would improve your life, they're oftentimes things that appear or feel difficult for us to do. For example, it would benefit you to wake up early in the morning. If you did so, you could potentially accomplish by 10 a.m. what most people accomplish in their entire day. But waking up early is hard. You're very familiar with the snooze button. So why is it so difficult to just wake up at the sound of your alarm and jump quickly in the shower and get going with your day, yet it's so much easier to just hit the snooze button and go back to bed? Your lack of desire to wake up early and to get out of bed and your lack of discipline causes you to sleep in. This would be aided by sleeping early, another good habit, but you like staying up late. This is aided by not getting an early start, which starts a chicken versus the egg argument, but because of that, you end up staying up later than you should because you feel like you need to accomplish something before you go to bed and you need more time. And unfortunately, sometimes the thing that you're trying to accomplish isn't exactly positive, but you have all these distractions in your life where you feel like just one more movie, one more show, one more video game, one more swipe of the screen to see another reel or another short. And next thing you know, the hours have gone by and you end up going to bed very late. Again, the things that are good for you, we find difficult to do. Yet it's the good stuff that would benefit you. For example, if you had gone to bed early and woke up early, you could go to the gym in the morning and work out, especially before you get distracted with the different tasks of the day. But you don't. You sleep in. And you do so because staying in bed is easier. Getting up is difficult. And then you miss one day and then 2 days and then 3 days and a week or a month. And next thing you know, you're out of shape. So it's putting it off for another week. Then you dread the day that you actually do go back to the gym because you're afraid of that soreness that you're going to feel the following day. So why not put it off a little bit more? Today's not the right day. maybe some other time. And when you eventually do get back to the gym, now you're a little bit more out of shape. You can't do what you used to do. You've gained weight. Now that's going to start affecting your eating habits because you feel like, well, I've already let go a little bit. What's a little bit more? You could have a healthy body and one that's attractive if you ate the foods that are good for you and in the portions that are good for you. But doing the right thing is hard. So you've killed your taste buds for things that are nutritious. And because your diet's all jacked up, it makes it harder and harder to get the results that you're looking for athletically. And now those two factors compound each other negatively because, again, you don't desire to do that which is good for you. Your health is also messed up because you don't stretch or do mobility exercises. Again, why? Because they're difficult. They're not fun. They don't feel good. The less you do them, the more difficult they are to do, and the worse that they feel when you actually do them. Your inconsistency in this area causes nagging issues, bad posture. But again, these are things that you don't like to do, even though they're good for you. You should feed your mind, and the best way to do that is to read. But again, it takes time. It can be difficult, especially if you're challenging yourself intellectually. If you're going to read things of value, they're going to challenge you. So it's going to be hard. It's a lot easier to just go scroll through a bunch of videos for a couple of hours. You should be investing your money so that you can be strong financially and that you can take care of the people who depend on you. But investing is difficult. Why? Well, there's risk involved. On top of that, there's no instant gratification for it. Your payment is deferred. But because you lack the ability to sacrifice in the here and now, it prevents you from living the life that you would like to, that it would eventually provide. There are so many examples that we could provide for you, whether it's keeping promises to yourself or to others, working hard in your job or on your skills that you're trying to develop, praying in the middle of the night. I could go on and on about the different activities that you should carry out throughout your day or week consistently that are good for you, that would develop you, develop your character, develop your relationship with God, your finances. But they are difficult. They take time. They're frustrating. But they have the greatest rewards. On the flip side, nearly everything that's bad for us are things that we crave. These are things that also typically provide instant gratification, but are most often laced with long-term discontent. Sleeping in feels so good. Just hit the snooze button. You know you need it. Delays your day. Prevents you from getting things done. It's not good for you, but who doesn't like to do it? Especially because it's probably the result of staying up too late. Because you're doing all of those important things like swiping through the shorts or swiping through the reels and looking at different videos, watching your favorite show. It'll give you that quick dopamine hit, but then you're left with nothing but time wasted in the present, borrowed from the future. But no point in crying over spilled milk. Sure, you've set yourself back. Why not just lounge about for the day? Sure, you've got lots of things to do, but why not just take the day off? And again, trade tomorrow for today. It'll suck later, but you'll have plenty of time to worry about that then. Because lounging around in the house all day, sure a lot easier than putting in some work. Again, it's easy, and we all like easy, so we desire to do it. And while you're taking the day off, why not just binge watch 3, 5, 7 hours of Netflix or your favorite movies? I'm sure there's some new show that everybody's raving about. And again, it's easy. We like to do it. Is it harmful? Does it take away from our goals? From our development? Sure. But we like to do it. And while you're at it, why not get something to eat? A little bit of comfort food never hurt. Some ice cream, some chips, some fizzy drinks. Now we're talking. All of which sounds real good. Very easy to do. Not one of which is good for you. But if you're so inclined, why not get high while you're at it? I mean, can you really watch a movie if you're not high? It makes everything better, so I've heard. You'll most likely eat more food, watch more content. Next thing you know, you've wasted your day, or your night, or both. But man, doesn't it just feel good to sit back and relax? And because it feels good, we desire to do it, despite the fact that we're probably wasting our time. Again, I could go on and on about all of the different activities that we do, whether in small amounts or in excess, that are bad for us. But why do we do it? We know it's bad for us. So why do we do it? Why are we so attracted to that which is harmful to us, but so disinterested in that which would benefit us? It's almost like we're in a big test, and that's because we are. Now, you could argue about who's the one administering such a test, but there's no denying that we're all in it. And regardless of whether you assess it from a material level or a spiritual level, those who do that which they're supposed to do and avoid the things that they're supposed to avoid win in this life and in the next, if you believe in it. So if we're going to be in this test that essentially pits us against these two polar opposites of doing that which is good for us and avoiding that which is bad for us, then it would be really beneficial if we could utilize some sort of practice that helps us to develop the skill of restraint so that we can avoid those things that are harmful to us, which will only leave us in the position to do those things that are beneficial. So we want to go over the practice of fasting as a means of developing the skill of restraint from those things that are harmful towards us so that we can continue to practice those things that are beneficial to us. So when it comes to fasting, there are many different types of fasting that you could do and that you'll come across if you search. But the two most common types of fasting that you'll typically come across are going to be intermittent fasting and some form of spiritual fasting. Now, intermittent fasting is essentially the practice of abstaining from food and drink outside of water for the entire day, with the exception of anywhere from 3 to 6 to 8 hours, during which period you're allowed to eat. Now, some people might approach this from a different angle of just having what we call one meal a day. In this practice, you're going to eat and drink whatever you want at one sitting, but after that, you're not going to consume anything outside of water. Now, many people do this type of fasting purely for health benefits because there are different benefits that you are going to attain during different stages of the fasting, depending on how long you fast for. This entire process has excellent health benefits, but even intermittent fasting can be excellent for training your ability in restraint. Even if people don't really think of it like that and they're just thinking of it purely from the health perspective, it takes a lot of discipline to do it. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. It absolutely contributes to your ability to develop your levels of restraint and discipline, because it's a really hard thing to do. First and foremost, because regardless of the window during which you eat, after that is probably going to be one of either breakfast or lunch or dinner during which you're going to be around other people that are going to be eating and you're not. And you're going to have cravings to eat. And watching other people eat is going to be difficult. You've also probably lived years and years and years of building up habits of eating at certain times, and now you're telling your mind to tell your body that, hey, we're not going to do that. And while that's difficult, that's exactly the type of practice that we want to develop. Because all of the things that we listed before are things that you need to refrain from doing. Now, with spiritual fasting, we're talking about no food, no water from dawn until dusk, with the specific purpose of refraining from food and drink and other worldly desires for the purpose of seeking the pleasure of God. Now, fasting in either of these ways is going to be excellent for developing discipline and developing the ability to refrain from certain actions. But spiritual fasting is taking it to another level, because we're not just talking about food and drink. That's just the basic level. As you continue to develop in your spirituality, you continue to try to refrain from anything that is evil. And as you continue to develop in your spirituality further, you continue to try to refrain from anything that may even lead to something evil. And likewise, as you continue to develop in your spirituality, you're trying to do as much good as possible while you're in this process. And if you're going throughout the day without food or without drink, you can become very irritable, and it becomes very difficult to maintain your character throughout this process. And there's always a more detailed version of this type of fasting in which you can create an even more heightened sense of awareness about that which is good for you and that which is bad for you, and trying to do those things that are good and trying to avoid those things that are bad. Not only are you trying to abstain from food and drink, but you're trying to engage in as much positive actions as you possibly can throughout this process, all the way down to the finest thoughts that you have in your mind. We've already mapped out how the vast majority of the things that are good for us, we tend not to desire to do. And likewise, the things that are bad for us, we tend to not only desire, but crave. Fasting teaches us restraint. And the whole purpose of spiritual fasting is to train that ability to refrain from those things that are harmful to you. Now, most people will never get off the ground floor, which is just basically starving themselves of food and drink. Most people don't even realize that there are different levels to this. When you're fasting, you begin by refraining from food and drink. But as you move on from that level, you start to increase your acts of worship and your good deeds that you're doing throughout the day. That can come in the form of prayer or supplication or being generous or kind to those that are around us. But on the restraint side of things, now we're not just looking at food and drink. We're looking at refraining from everything that would be harmful to our ears, to our eyes, and to our tongue, where you attempt to focus deeper and deeper on the path of hear no evil, see no evil, and say no evil. Now, if you thought that giving up food and drink for a certain period of time throughout the day was difficult, welcome to the big leagues. And when you graduate from that level, then you start to double down on your acts of worship and your good deeds, and likewise on your refraining from not only those things that are harmful, but those which might lead to harm, and then even further to those which just have no benefit at all. And if you follow along this line of thinking, you can start to see how fasting can get deeper and deeper as you develop your capacity for acts of worship and you develop your capacity for restraint. You may start by just avoiding food and drink, but eventually you move on to speaking good or staying silent. And then move on even further to avoiding listening to lies or gossip or anything harmful. And then even further to the point where you just don't entertain idle talk at all. Fasting, in any of its forms, is going to teach you about sacrifice. If you want to get anywhere in life, with regards to yourself, your character, your goals, you're going to have to sacrifice something. It may be social interactions, it may be Twinkies, but you're gonna have to sacrifice something. Fasting is an excellent way to train yourself because you're willingly walking into a situation that you don't desire to do, but you do so because you're training yourself on the process of restraint. And on a spiritual level, you do so because you want to develop your spiritual muscles and your relationship with God so that you can continue to live a God-centered life with righteous characteristics. And so as you look to improve your life and develop your character and your spirituality and improve your relationship with God and the relationship you have with those that are around you, it's important that you incorporate fasting into your weekly routine. It's going to develop the tools that you need with regards to sacrifice and restraint and discipline that you're going to need to accomplish the goals that you have in front of you.